Commander Roxy Boomer Callahan strolled down the golden carpet of the Veltran Assembly Hall like it owed her money. She was 15 minutes late, chewing on a piece of mint gum that somehow echoed through the acoustics like a slap to protocol, and wearing aviators despite being indoors. Her camo blazer, technically diplomatic formal wear if you squinted, flapped slightly as she moved, revealing the sidearm holstered under a sash labeled Friendship Envoy. Behind her trailed the most undiplomatic task force in recent galactic history, Sergeant Trix Delgado, licking alien hot sauce off her knuckles, Lieutenant Mia Cade, death-staring a chandelier like it was planning treason, and Mac Lawnchair Griggs, pushing a hover crate full of cultural exchange items that included beef jerky, fireworks, a half-inflated kiddie pool, and something that looked suspiciously like a haunted blender. The hall was a cathedral of pretentious light. Gleaming obsidian statues of Veltran heroes glared down with polished disdain, and the delegates, adorned in glittery fabrics and floating hats. Yes, literal floating hats, gathered to welcome what they believed would be Earth's meek first-contact diplomats. Instead, Roxy cracked a grin that said, "Bless your hearts," and announced, "Sorry I'm late, y'all. Had to iron the galaxy." The translator drones paused, confused, before blurting the phrase in 3 dialects, each more confused than the last. A Kringari noble sniffed and muttered, "That is not a metaphor in our records." Roxy sauntered to the ceremonial stone table in the middle of the hall, meant for offering respect, and instead deadlifted it with a grunt and plopped her boot on it like she was about to grill hot dogs. The crowd gasped. Mac whispered, "You think that was real granite?" and was promptly shushed by a Yarnathi functionary who looked like a cross between a squid and an overworked librarian. "Delegates!" boomed High Chancellor Vel Nor, his voice echoing like a self-congratulatory podcast. "We welcome you to the Galactic Friendship Gauntlet, a time-honored tradition of diplomacy, civility, and cooperative spirit." Roxy nodded. "Sounds adorable. When do we get to the part where someone tries to steal my liver?" A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Delgado chomped on a chili chip and added, "I brought extra hot sauce. Just saying." The first offering ceremony began. The Kringari presented a levitating gemstone that played the national anthem of a long-dead planet. The Yarnathi offered a meticulously folded map of their border bureaucracy, complete with ink that had to be applied using a humidity-controlled stylus. Earth's gifts? Trix dropped a jar of pickled eggs on the table with a thunk. Mac pulled out a scented candle labeled Freedom, now with gunpowder notes, and lit it with a spark from his finger-modified plasma lighter. Cade simply set down a pocket mirror and stared silently into it, muttering, "Reflection complete. Threat assessment. Tacky." The silence from the Veltran side was almost holy. Finally, a delegate croaked, "Are these sincere?" Roxy beamed. "Of course. Nothing says trust like fermented chicken embryos and a candle you can use to start a civil war." The day's itinerary continued with a tour of the Hall of Trials, where the gauntlet would begin in earnest the next day. Each room was adorned with arcane rules, holographic banners celebrating peace through condescension, and alien motivational quotes like, "Compliance is clarity," and "Smiles are mandatory until screaming is authorized." Mac read one and whispered, "Is this diplomacy or a daycare run by Sith Lords?" That night, the human crew was assigned their quarters, lavishly uncomfortable chambers full of ergonomic furniture designed for beings with 3 spines and moral superiority, complexes. Trix immediately duct-taped a "Do Not Disturb, unless you want to be disturbed" sign on the door. Roxy reviewed the gauntlet brief while balancing a protein bar on her nose, occasionally chuckling at the challenges. Obstacle course with simulated enemy patrols, negotiation under duress, and, oh look, ceremonial roleplay with difficult stakeholders. She grinned at her team. "Y'all ready to improvise the most confusing diplomatic incident in Veltran history?" Mia didn't look up. "Already made a list of insults that sound like compliments. Half of them involve questioning the structural integrity of their robes, Mac added. I hacked the training droids. They now randomly spout cowboy wisdom. Hope the Yarnathi enjoy being told don't squat with your spurs on during stealth simulations. Trix cracked her knuckles and taped a pack of gum under the table like it was a dead man's switch. Let's make tomorrow a group project in psychological chaos. Roxy tossed her protein bar in the air, caught it without looking, and leaned back.
Sweet dreams, crew. Tomorrow we teach the galaxy that Earth doesn't do pageants. We do sarcasm, duct tape, and debriefs with explosions. And as the lights dimmed, the Veltron assembly snored in blissful ignorance, entirely unaware that
they had just invited the interstellar equivalent of a raccoon with a PhD in demolition into their diplomatic henhouse. The morning of the Gauntlet's first trial began with ceremonial horns played by amphibious trumpet squid and a prayer to the spirit of orderly evaluation. Commander Roxy Callahan responded by walking into the arena with a foam coffee cup, dark aviators, and a shirt that read, I survived a space bureaucracy and all I got was this gauntlet. The Veltron organizers had painstakingly prepared a stealth and survival course, a thick, jungle-like biodome rigged with heat sensors, camouflaged drones, and psychological endurance simulations meant to stress and expose weaknesses. The Yarnathi called it the path of graceful endurance. Roxy muttered, looks like a laser tag park, and a mushroom farm had a baby. As the human team was ushered to the start line, a Kringari judge announced, your goal is to infiltrate, gather data, and return undetected. Trix grinned. Copy that. Engage operation loud, proud, and mildly concerning. 10 minutes in, the Veltron control room was already having a meltdown. Instead of silent infiltration, Roxy's squad marched down the center path belting country. Roads, at full volume, tossing granola bars to confuse surveillance drones like they were pigeons in a park. The alien observers, initially smug, began blinking nervously as the sensors failed to categorize this behavior. Commander Callahan, is your squad playing human folk music during infiltration? Crackled a Veltran monitor. Roxy tapped her comm and replied sweetly, Yup. It's called cultural integration. Look it up. Meanwhile, Mia Cade had accidentally rerouted the thermal sensors to loop images of a sloth doing yoga. Mac, for his part, was engaged in a high-stakes game of Uno with a captured scout drone whispering, Draw 4, you bureaucratic trash can. Deeper in the simulation, alien squads began encountering traps. Not fatal, just wildly inconvenient. One Kringari officer woke up dangling from a tree, duct-taped and wearing a sign in 3 languages that read, Hug me, I'm hostile. Another squad triggered what they thought was a plasma mine, only to be engulfed in glitter and Taylor Swift lyrics blaring in surround sound. Is this psychological warfare? One delegate asked, to which a Yarnathi responded, No, it's worse. It's American. By midday, the trial had descended into chaos. The alien teams were scattered, confused, and deeply concerned about whether Earth's tactics were brilliant, insane, or both. Back at the observation deck, Veltran High Chancellor Vel Nor leaned toward an aide. They are succeeding, but without following any of the intended protocols. The aide whispered, They bypassed Protocol 17 with a kazoo and a smoke bomb made from snack packets. Roxy, chewing beef jerky and lounging under a holographic tree, waved up at the drone cameras. Y'all wanted innovation, right? Consider this redneck judo. We don't hit back. We just make you trip over your own rule book. The second part of the trial involved diplomatic simulations. Roxy and her team were placed in a role-play scenario with hostile negotiators, actors, from various galactic species trained in simulated conflict. Unfortunately, no training prepared them for Earth strategy. Trix responded to an aggressive trade demand by gifting a chili-flavored lollipop with a note that read, You need this more than we do. Mia Cade replied to a territorial insult with a spreadsheet of the actor's species' failed colonization attempts, ending with, You really want to go 0 for 7? Mac interrupted a fake embargo scenario by proposing a free trial of Earth's latest streaming service, which he had renamed Planetflix, complete with a theme song. Roxy's grand finale was stepping into a fake hostage situation and resolving it by confusing the captors with rapid-fire Earth idioms. Don't count your warp drives before they're fueled, sugar. We've got bigger fish to space fry, and this ain't our first oxygen rodeo. The alien actors broke character, one laughing so hard his faceplates detached. This is a diplomatic simulation, one judge hissed. Why are your responses designed for sitcoms? Roxy shrugged. You're trying to measure civility. We're demonstrating survivability. If your peace talks can't survive SAS, y'all better not meet a real crisis. By the end of the day, the gauntlet board looked like a malfunctioning bingo card. Scores scrambled, metrics confused, and alien judges quietly panicking. One Veltran quietly muttered, "They're winning, but it feels like we're losing." As the humans returned to their quarters, Trix high-fived a mop droid she'd renamed Captain Mop Crunch. Mac was reprogramming a towel dispenser to say, "Nice try" in 12 languages. Roxy, sipping from her ever-present iced coffee, gave one final glance to the observation tower, grinned and whispered, "Tomorrow's banquet better have ranch dressing. I plan to insult an admiral, and I need dipping sauce for dramatic effect." The banquet hall was a diplomatic fever dream, floor-to-ceiling crystal arches, floating bioluminescent centerpieces shaped like extinct peace doves, and chairs that adjusted to the emotional state of the sitter, which meant Trix's chair kept trying to eject her. Alien dignitaries from across the quadrant wore their most extravagant robes, ceremonial breathing masks, and in one, Yarnathi's case, a hat that generated a gentle rain cloud as a symbol of wisdom. Commander Roxy Callahan entered the hall, like a wrecking ball wrapped in politeness, flipping her aviators up onto her head and offering a finger gun salute to the Galactic Orchestra, which immediately stopped playing, unsure if it had just been threatened or flirted with. "Don't stop on my account," she said cheerfully. "Y'all sound like a space whale with allergies. Keep going." Sergeant Trix Delgado sauntered in behind her, still carrying her tactical clutch, technically a purse, but also a portable EMP disguised as a makeup mirror. Mac Lawnchair Griggs wore a glitter-covered tuxedo jacket over his SEAL fatigues, and Lieutenant Mia Cade, as ever, looked like she had memorized the seating chart so she could target the most strategically insulting compliments possible. Their assigned table was near the center, uncomfortably close to the Veltran high seat, which only made Roxy grin wider. She kicked her boots up on the edge of the table, without a trace of irony, and whispered to Trix, "Time to smile, insult. And chew, and I'm all out of breath mints." The first course arrived, some gelatinous cube thing still wobbling like it had questions about existence. Roxy scanned it with the glittery clutch, really a biochemical analyzer, and tapped her fork against the plate. "If this thing's still moving in 10 seconds, I'm calling animal control." A Kringari noble gasped, clearly offended. Roxy turned with a sweet-as-tea smile and added, "Oh, I meant that as a compliment. It's so lively, very rustic." Nearby, Mia leaned toward a Yarnathi admiral and murmured, "I love how your fleet formation strategy is so non-linear, chaotic even, like jazz, but less competent." Trix was in the middle of a one-handed arm wrestling match with a Brantok general, an 8-foot wall of muscle and ritual tattoos, while eating a taco with the other. She won, burped politely, and passed the general a bottle of ghost pepper, sauce labeled American Confidence. Mac was showing a coalition of minor envoys how to hack their own diplomatic badges to play the Star-Spangled Banner at random intervals. "It's performance art," he explained. "Very in right now on Earth." The Veltran hosts tried to salvage the tone. Chancellor Vel Noor rose, raised a delicate crystal goblet, and delivered a long-winded speech about unity, tradition, and mutual respect, pausing after every sentence for dramatic glow shifts in his ornamental head crown. Roxy clapped once, just once. It echoed like a gunshot. "Beautiful, truly. I haven't heard that many synonyms for We're better than you in a single speech since my last review board. The air chilled. A Yarnathi whispered to another, "Is this mockery or a test?" To which the reply was, "Both, and I think we're failing." As dessert arrived, something that looked like it was still blinking, Mac discreetly triggered a minor subroutine in the hall's lighting system, causing the chandeliers to display Earth-style constellations. "Oops," he said. "Must have hit the cultural exchange setting." Over their heads, the stars spelled out, "Hi, we brought snacks and sarcasm." At that exact moment, the ambassador from the Kringari Enclave offered Roxy a sip of the Wine of Clarity, a ceremonial drink known to reveal one's true intentions. Roxy accepted, raised the glass, and then said with a gleam in her eye, "Cheers to honesty, poor planning, and the audacity of assuming we wouldn't notice your surveillance bugs in the dressing rooms." Several delegates choked. A Yarnathi fell out of his chair. Trix casually flipped one of the said bugs onto the table and crushed it with her clutch. "Oops, your paranoia's showing." By now, the entire banquet had devolved into polite chaos. The alien dignitaries were either sweating, whispering, or openly panicking as Earth's representatives smiled their way through every trap, insult, and tradition. Roxy stood, raised her glass, and toasted with a voice like warm bourbon and cold steel. To peace, and to being just threatening enough in polite company that nobody asks us what we're actually planning. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the walls, a maintenance AI cried. She turned to her team. "Tomorrow's the closing ceremony. Let's make sure they remember the day they invited Earth to dinner and ended up questioning the entire premise of galactic diplomacy." Mac grinned. "Already loaded their planetary anthem into a kazoo band loop. It'll trigger the second someone says unity 3 times. Roxy chuckled, slung her arm over Trix's shoulder, and led the squad out of the hall. Behind them, the Veltran elite sat frozen in glittering gowns and shock, wondering if they'd just been charmed, insulted, defeated, or all three. The final day of the Galactic Friendship Gauntlet TM dawned with ceremonial fanfare, trumpet squid in full swing, and a floating banner that read, "Unity through order," which would have been touching if it hadn't been flashing in comic sans and slowly melting due to a malfunction Mac had accidentally coded in overnight. The Veltron assembly gathered in their grandest chamber, a gravity-neutral amphitheater shaped like a spiral seashell, where sound echoed just enough to make every whisper feel like statecraft. Delegates shimmered in silk, scales, and smugness, convinced that today they would reclaim control of the narrative with a finale presentation and a non-binding but absolutely mandatory performance review of Earth's behavior. Unfortunately for them, Earth had brought coffee, attitude, and a full-blown prank war arsenal. Commander Roxy Callahan arrived last, naturally, sipping from a stainless steel travel mug labeled Tears of Bureaucrats, and wearing a tailored blazer over tactical pants that somehow made her look both disarmingly professional and like she was moments from body-slamming a diplomat through a peace podium. Her aviators glinted under the plasma lights as she strolled to the speaking dais, trailed by her team, Trix flipping a coin she'd rigged to explode glitter on tails, Mia carrying a datapad filled with dossiers and thinly veiled threats, and Mac humming the Star Wars Imperial March just loud enough to be unsettling. The Veltrans launched into their final speech, an exhausting oratory stuffed with self-congratulation, thinly veiled scolding, and the phrase, "galactic norms," uttered no fewer than 19 times. Chancellor Velnor's head crown flashed with smug bioluminescence as he finally declared, "While Earth has demonstrated unique initiative, the Assembly finds its behavior dangerously unorthodox. We must now assess whether this civilization is suitable for integration or merely tolerated as a cautionary anomaly." Roxy smiled like a wolf in pearls. "Oh, y'all are gonna assess us? That's adorable." And then she tapped her comm. Instantly, the amphitheater's lighting glitched, the banners distorted into a giant animated gif of Roxy, giving 2 thumbs up. Delegates gasped. Trix's clutch began broadcasting Earth's national anthem in the voice of a Texan rodeo announcer. Every chair in the front row locked into place. The high-honored cyber toilets began singing backup harmonies. Mac, holding a glowing datapad, casually strolled up beside the main console and placed a single USB stick labeled oops.zip. "This," he said, "is what happens when you give an Earth engineer root access and unlimited petty energy." Chancellor Vel Nor shouted, "This is sabotage!" Roxy tilted her head. "No, darling, this is a debrief. You brought us here to evaluate our worth. We decided to return the favor, with footnotes, backup copies, and an interstellar pie chart labeled, 'How badly this went for you.'" Behind her, a massive hologram blinked to life, projecting a rotating infographic titled, "Top 10 Reasons Earth Should Run the Galaxy." Number 1. We survive on a planet with lava, hurricanes, bears, and internet comment sections. Number 2. Our diplomacy includes sarcasm, jazz hands, and a working knowledge of 3,000 ways to fake sincerity. Number 3. We invented waffles and flamethrowers in the same century. The list continued, horrifying the dignitaries and delighting several rogue empires watching from the galactic livestream. Mia, without looking up from her tablet, added, "By the way, your encrypted database of strategic military routes? We didn't touch it, but we did rearrange your playlist so every time you launch a fleet it starts with Barbie Girl." Trix blew a kiss toward the Yarnathi delegation and whispered, "Next time, check your gift baskets for tracking." Beacons. Sugar. Chaos erupted. The Kringari screamed about diplomatic violations. The Yarnathi wept softly into their ceremonial contract scrolls, and several neutral planets began quietly updating their galactic threat assessments. Roxy took one last sip from her mug and addressed the entire hall with calm, southern steel. "Earth didn't come here to start a fight. We came to remind you that looking down on people is a great way to trip over them later. You wanted to evaluate us? Fine. Now we've evaluated you. Verdict: overdecorated, underprepared, and way too confident for people who get hacked by a species that still thinks duct tape is high-tech." The human team turned and walked out, comms buzzing, leaving the Galactic Assembly behind in stunned silence. On the way to their ship, Mac leaned over and whispered, "So, what do you think happens next?" Roxy smirked as the airlock hissed open. "They'll either sue us, invite us to run their Security Council, or build a religion around passive aggression. Either way, we win." As the shuttle lifted off, the galaxy stared at Earth's delegation not with fear, but with existential dread. Because this wasn't conquest. This wasn't war. This was psychological warfare via Southern charm, sarcasm, and a glitter bomb in the shape of a peace treaty. And as Earth's transmission signed off with a cheerful, "Y'all come," back now, you hear. The stars themselves seemed to blink in disbelief.